Every man carries something he doesn't talk about, something he's ashamed of, something he regrets, something he resents. Look, you can be successful, you can be disciplined, you can be respected, and still feel weighted down by the fluff that nobody sees. Shame, guilt, resentment. These are emotions that choke your confidence, disconnect you from your wife, disconnect you from your kids, and keep you from stepping fully into who God called you to be. Look, today I'm going to show you exactly how to release those emotions. And the reason for that is so that you don't repeat the same cycle again, right? The same pain and that you start leading from a clean heart. Story time. I remember a season where I carried so much guilt and shame as a man. Not because I didn't love my family, but because I kept failing in areas I thought I already had to figure it out, right? When it came to business, I left corporate to go full time into entrepreneurship and then failed. I had to sell the house because I didn't recreate the money. And and I remember having to sell the house and having to leave the at the time I had written my first book, had to leave the writing, had to leave the speaking, had to leave the coaching and go back into focusing on the business. And I remember how I felt inside, right? Like I just felt empty. It felt like I grabbed this fire that I had in my chest and I had to put it down. And I felt like I didn't listen to advice. My wife was crying out on, hey, let's think of an option. She even got us a hotel room one time for us to be able to, you know, for me to think of ways to make money because I was so excited about the podcast was top 10 on, new and noteworthy on iTunes and things were going great, in that aspect, but I hadn't reproduced the money. And when we had to sell the house and didn't have enough money to even pay rent on the daily, so we paid for a year up front. Um, it was such a high level of shame, right? Because I felt like I should have already have figured it out. And the more I held it inside, the more distant I became, the more irritable I became, the more resentment built up, right? Resentment towards my wife. Why? The one trying to help me. Still build it. Towards myself, towards situations that weren't even the real problem. And one day during prayer, like God pulled something out of me so clearly. You are carrying things I never asked you to carry. You are carrying things I never asked you to carry. And I realized I had been living from a wounded story. Like a story where I couldn't mess up. A story where mistakes made me unworthy. And being an achiever, when you're an achiever, you put your worth inside of your achievement. If you're not achieving, you're not worthy of love. You're not worthy of attention. You're not worthy of, you have to actually achieve something to be worthy of something. That was my story, right? A story where resentment protected me from feeling weak. But guess what? That story wasn't healing me. That story was actually keeping me stuck in the same emotional loop. And that day, I made a clear decision. I am not dragging this into the next chapter of my life. I'm not. And that decision changed everything for me, for my marriage, for my family, and for the business. It did not make it faster or magically. It just changed the direction because one little degree change and you're going to end up somewhere different. So here it is. First thing, name it. The first step in releasing shame, guilt, or resentment is naming it. Like most men never do this, right? We avoid it. We lie about it. We bury it. But we distract ourselves with work, right? With work, with success, with drinking, or just staying busy. But look, you can't release what you refuse to acknowledge. You can't release what you refuse to acknowledge or what you lie about. Instead of acknowledgement is also lying, right? And a lot of us men, like we lie about fucking everything. So stop lying and ask yourself this: what am I actually ashamed of? What am I actually ashamed of? What guilt am I still carrying? And sometimes you're not even carrying your shame or your guilt, you're carrying somebody else's shame and guilt because you don't know how to hold space, so you're holding baggages, right? So, what guilt am I still carrying? Who or what am I resenting? Like, say it out loud if you can, but I know you can. Write it down if you can't, or do both. I remember there's a guy that I coach, and inside the coaching, one of the first thing we do inside that stage of release it is resentment list. Create a resentment list and then reach out and apologize for your part. And he had this guy that he held resentment for 8 years. Then when he finally reached out, he found out that the guy was dead for 8 years. Like he has literally been holding on to dead weight for 8 years. Don't be that. That changed the way he saw his life and resentment. So naming it pulls it out of you, pulls it out of the shadows. It takes it from this heavy thing inside to a story where I'm ready to deal with it. This is where your power comes back. You're no longer running from the dragon, right? And it's so important to understand. You are turning around to face it. You're no longer running. 2, reframe it. Look, shame comes from identity, right? Guilt comes from behavior. And then resentment comes from unexpressed pain. Resentment is unexpressed pain. And here's the truth. Your mistakes weren't meant to define who you are. They were meant to refine you. So like ask yourself this question. What else could this mean, right? We're reframing. That's step 2, reframe it. What else could this mean? What did I learn from this? How did this grow me? Look, reframing doesn't erase what happened. It redeems it. It doesn't erase what happened. It redeems it. I think it's important to understand that because then you might feel like, no, I don't deserve to. Yes, you do. It redeems it. It turns the thing that once weakened you into a weapon of wisdom. You get to be the testimony. And when you reframe your stories stop controlling you. 3, release it. Finally, release it. This is where forgiveness comes in. Not the soft and fluffy, happy clappy forgiveness. The kind that takes courage. The kind that takes humility. The kind that sets you free. Look, release the shame by speaking the truth over yourself. Right? We said that before. The truth will set you free. I'm not my past. I am a new creation. God already forgave me. I'm catching up. God already forgiving me. I'm catching up. Release the guilt by taking responsibility. Like own it. But make a real change, right? Like own it and make a real change. Look, guilt loses its power once you take aligned action. Guilt releases its power when you take aligned action. Release the resentment by choosing forgiveness. Because resentment doesn't punish them, it punishes you. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means you're no longer giving yesterday the right to rob tomorrow. You're no longer giving yesterday the right to rob tomorrow. Look, this is the moment where your emotional chain breaks. And one of your kids too, because they're connected to you. What you don't transform in you will transfer to them. I'm going to say that one more time. What you don't transform in you will be transferred to them. So, if you're carrying shame, guilt, or resentment, remember this rhythm. Name it, reframe it, release it. You don't have to stay stuck. You don't have to repeat the same emotional cycle. You can start fresh. When? Today. When? Today. with a heart that is clean, with a spirit that is free, levity and ease. Look, that's the path to becoming the man God built you to be. So look, now that you know how to release what's been weighing you down, the next step is to learn how to build emotional connection, right? And in a way that actually strengthens your marriage and your family. So in this next video, I talk about how do I create deeper emotional connection with my wife and kids. All right, so click the box right there and I see you in there. Peace out.